Life. I'm your host, Cameron Logan. So excited to welcome you to the new show with a new look, and thank you for being part of the craziness. I know it isn't so easy sometimes, but the world has literally changed so much recently that it's hard to fit an hour or two into your schedule, I know. So again, thank you for making this happen, and thank you for checking out the show. I also want to special thank you to my special guest engineer tonight and guru, Cassidy Lightwing. He's more than an engineer. He's my friend and the go-to guy who shares his vast knowledge that makes my life a bit easier, especially tonight. Thanks for being here and helping this video show make it to fruition, Cassidy Lightwing.
You are very welcome, bro. And thank
How's
you.
This look?
It looks good. We have that. We have the sunset behind the zoom, you know. So it's just.
I'm thinking. Am I looking at myself on YouTube? I don't see my logo though there.
We have the Mal podcast on the bottom right, just like you said.
I'm looking at it in the wrong place. I don't know. So, all right. So we don't have any bugs. I don't think. I'm just looking at my wrong monitor, I think. All right. So, anyway, Cassie, thanks so much. What?
Oh, I see what it's doing. Basically, YouTube's grabbing your camera, and so all anyone's seeing is your camera.
Okay. So. Stream code, was that the problem?
No, the stream code is fine. It's basically the YouTube is grabbing your webcam instead of the broadcast.
So how do we get back to where we want to be with our Zoom meeting on YouTube?
Let's see. Let me check.
That's the question.
I honestly don't know. You might have to disable the live and then try again.
Okay.
Alternately, we could just record it.
So, we want to be live. So, basically, start a new meeting here, right? Or start a new. So everybody, just stand by. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why this happened, but if we actually start a new YouTube live, would that do it?
I think so. Because this is saying we've got a solid stream, and your stream key is the one I'm using.
Okay, so I just clicked on. I see what it's supposed to look like, and I don't know what I just did. So I'm looking at it. I'm looking at us, all three of us on YouTube. I see Serena up there in the upper right, and then me on the left, and what I did was click on YouTube, and I think I clicked on Go Live. So
awesome.
I think that might be where we are. So it says 3 minutes and 44 seconds, but that should be. Let me try this. So.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. So the audience is seeing two lives right now. There are two different lives.
So I just ended the one live. So we're on the newest one.
Yes, and everybody can see us properly. We are cooking with gas now.
Okay. All right. So Cassidy, can we take Serena off the screen for a minute, because she's kind of out there all by herself, and we're going to co-op here for a minute, just you and I.
All right. So you want me to go back to the
just you and I.
title?
Just you and I, Cass.
Okay. Let's see. Taking Serena off the screen. There we go. All right.
Yeah, and there's a delay there too. So if you guys are watching somehow, and I think it's about a 10-second delay. So, So Serena's gone, but that's our guest that I'm talking about. So, again, Cassidy, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here tonight, and putting this all together. And the man has been doing a live show like 7 days a week for years now, and so you can catch him in the morning. Or is there a set time for that, Cass?
Well, we try to have a set time, but with the various medical issues at play, it's not so easy. So it's basically between noon and 3.
Right. So that's quite a window there, but that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, we got a great guest tonight. Our first guest for this weird live show that we're going to do. And just so folks out there listening know what's coming up, we're going to do a couple of different shows on My Alien Life. We're going to have a kind of what I'm going to call the generic alien UFO show, which will be like once a month. If it really picks up and gets popular, it'll be more often. But, that's kind of just going to be kind of general chatter about what's happening in the space around the big marble here. And I think that would be fascinating. So it's just another way for me to reach out to all of my people out there who have listened to me in the past, and I appreciate you so much. And we're witnessing the evolution of this show over again. And thanks for being a part of that. I love all of you. Yes, even Bob Lazar. And Cass, did I ever tell you my story about speaking with Bob Lazar?
No, sir.
So I have his phone number, and so I called him a couple of times. So I called him 3 times total. Mm-hmm. And a couple of times didn't really go good. And he knew who I was like on the second call because I had emailed him like 15 times, and I also sent him a couple letters.
Okay.
And not so much because I was a huge fan or whatever and that I wanted to get him on the show, but I just kind of wanted to pick his brain. And, if it led to a show, it would. But, there's so much or what he has done has been documented so much that it didn't really matter to me. If what new thing was I going to get out of Bob Lazar? Nothing. So anyway, so like on the third time I talked to him, we talked like 30 minutes, and at some point, all of a sudden I realized this is so dumb. We talked like 10 minutes about chlorinating hot tubs. I have no idea what that even was about, but right at that point I said, Bob, this is turning into the worst human conversation ever. And he said, this is Tom. And which that's his pseudonym or whatever for the person he blames stuff on. And if somebody calls him, he'll say, this is Tom. And so it kind of went that way, and it kind of went south fast. But there was nothing to the conversation. So when I joke about Bob Lazar, I have to say that, I have talked to him, and it went that way, and whatever. And so I choose to have more interesting people on this show, like you, Cassidy. And every so often I meet someone who fills in some of the blanks of my own alien life. And there's people out there who have just profoundly wonderful stories that we share that we often make our existence seem a bit clear, and it also seems to raise more questions. So tonight we're going to talk to an experiencer who has not only been on an incredible journey, but one that allowed her the ability to communicate with aliens. So this story is different because I believe it's absolutely real. So Serena Radcliffe, she's here. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome, Serena, to My Alien Life.
Thank you.
How are you?
Hold on.
There we go.
Oh, hi.
There she is.
Hi, I'm back. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be back on your show again. It's actually quite an honor to get to talk to you, and obviously I'm a big fan, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like imposter syndrome, where I'm like, do I really belong on your show?
Yeah, that's where I was feeling the same way. You're feeling that? Cass, are you feeling that as well?
Every time.
So, Serena, you and I have networked. I don't even remember when you were on last, but we've sort of been in touch the whole time, and we chat from time to time, and you throw some stuff at me, and you have this way of grabbing my attention because you think deeply. And when I say that, not only you're thinking outside the box, you're thinking about some pretty profound shit, as you said. Like the other day, it was like toroidal warp bubbles. It's here and shit. It's really happening. You said it's called a frequency bubble. It's the same thing. And so what brought your attention to that? I mean, what got you thinking about that? What is that? And why was it important to you?
Well, the thing about ships, the thing about spaceships, is that we don't really get to see the kind of spaceship that works. When we see a ship that is, it's aerodynamic. The military shows us things that are aerodynamic and whatnot. And even if you look at like TV programs, you'll see things that show you their version of what a spaceship looks like. But what zero gravity and what an actual ship could look like is basically a bubble. The bubble would be outside of the ship, but these types of bubbles are created by frequency or resonating chambers, is what I believe. And these resonating chambers are creating these sound bubbles. And the bubbles themselves are interacting with their environment in a way that is very organic, because everything has a frequency, everything has a sound. So like the earth has a sound, it has a sound wave, it has a frequency of its own. And those are very powerful. We don't see them. And one of the things that's really interesting is that if you start to research the sound frequency itself of the planet, they'll tell you it doesn't affect human beings. Even though birds and everything else use these types of electromagnetic fields for many purposes. So these fields exist, and they are actually shaped in spheres. So when we say bubbles, we're talking about spheres. We're talking about the natural shape of how energy contains itself and creates structure. And the structures are actually, you can make those structures out of energy all around you because of the way that sound resonates. So like the sound that's resonating out of the planet is constant. It's, I can't remember what exactly hertz is at.
I can't either. It's okay.
Yeah, we don't need to get like too detailed.
You guys can look it up.
Human resonance. So it's such a beautiful sound, and what it does is it creates a kind of invisible energy field. And how I believe that these ships are working is that they're harnessing these energy fields by creating repulsion. And one of the things I think is really interesting is that a scientist has recently come out, like just very recently come out, DARPA scientist, and he was saying that he created a warp bubble. And this warp bubble is this, very new version of what they consider to be this, future of space, flight and travel. And once again, we're talking about alien technology, but we're just really talking about Earth technology, nature technology, the nature.
Yes.
It's all really kind of a natural occurrence. And I think when you start looking at nature, when you start looking at what we have, one of the things that that human beings are doing that I think is wrong is we're trying to create energy instead of harnessing it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is instead of naturally blending extremely toxic oxidizers with fuel to create tremendous explosions to get us from point A to B, we're using some sort of natural frequency that can put us
you just
there
said it.
with less energy.
Yeah,
Probably.
well, you just said it. You have to create all of these things, and our own, detriment is that we're trying to build bigger and larger rockets.
Yeah.
And it's all about, trying to make these huge rockets that will get us from point A to point B. And there's all of this energy just right there. It does, the rockets are just, I don't know why we're doing it, to be super honest. It's silly.
Because straying away from molecular technology would be giving up part of their power. Unfortunately for them,
it's a hamstring. Yeah.
Yeah. See, unfortunately for them and their designs, every human being and basically everything with DNA can harness this energy from within, and that's what defines by the various technological scales a Type 4 society. And
exactly.
That's exactly what we're trying to teach humans.
Yeah, and I mean the truth is that they do have these big, spectacular, distractions. Building these rockets. I almost think of people like Elon Musk who are building these large rockets as a spectacular distraction, because they really are making it look like that's what we should endeavor towards. That he's doing something grandiose, that he's doing something spectacular for the human race, but in a way he's almost like a clown,
and needlessly putting people at jeopardy, because obviously they've done a lot of testing, but not enough. I mean, NASA has put people up into space, but how much practice does the man have, really? Not as much. Well, so we've seen stuff blow up on the launch pad like recently, and then it's seemingly weeks later he's putting people up into space. So to me that doesn't sit well.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people forgot. It kind of got swept under the rug with the normal media distractions. But Elon Musk recently mentioned that they had discovered that essentially humans cannot survive on Mars. The radiation is too different, which links it back into this warp bubble, because that's the purpose of the warp bubble, is normalization of radiation and reality. So, would you agree, Serena?
Yeah, I mean, what's happening is that they're just basically pulling the wool over our eyes to what the real technology is. Yeah. And with the spectacularness of, they are using the alien technology or the natural technology, the advanced technology. They are, I hate to say alien technology, because honestly it belongs to all of us.
Right? That's why I don't charge nothing, folks. It's not mine to sell.
Right. Oh. It belongs to all of us. It's just that they are more advanced than us.
I want to be your first subscriber, though.
They're more advanced. So they have gone through some of the processes that we've gone through, that we're going through now. But it's so dishonest, because we do have more technology and capabilities than we are giving our general population.
Yeah. Exactly, and
maybe the capability as well, because I always wonder. I'm sometimes really disappointed on the technology that we actually show that we have and that we use. So when I see these new rockets and with Elon Musk and Jeff, and seems like there's a little competition going on between the two, and it really has nothing to do with us, me or you. I mean, we're not billionaires. We're nobody, and So, what's our other aerospace man? The former owner of Skinwalker.
Virgin Galactic guy.
No. Of Skinwalker Ranch. I'm sorry, I can't. It's been drawing blank. But anyway, there's other people out there who actually try to, experiment with technology that we call alien technology. And I think that, obviously, we're going to benefit with that, and possibly it's cleaner. Hopefully, it's cleaner. It is cleaner. I'm assuming it's cleaner.
I mean, obviously, you look at space, you look at stars, you look at all the things that happen in space, and it's violent. There is a lot of violence in space. Like a star dies, and some very violent things happen. But what we're doing is just we're kind of looking at these people who are doing these things, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and I think a very large part of the population looks at those guys and they really are making fun of them for what they're doing, because I think deep down we all kind of know that when you're shooting these huge rockets up into space, and you're not really taking care of your environment or where you live on the planet, like Cassidy said, you can't live on Mars. You can only live here. So even if you were to say, oh yeah, like let's join the space race, right now we kind of need to be able to be stewards of our own ship here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
I was talking about Robert Bigelow, Bigelow Aerospace, which, you know, he's one of the players, but, you know, in the future of development of travel and energy, but, you know, what really has happened there, I have no idea, because it apparently hasn't been newsworthy or nothing has happened. So go ahead, Cass.
Oh, I was just, you know, I'm going to say at some point we're definitely going to check out the ranch. Skinwalker Ranch, I mean.
You think something's buried there?
Buried? No. I believe, do basically from my research, that what we're looking at there is a cross rift of what somebody might call ley lines. And so basically non-terrestrial ships, be they spiritual entities or, you know, extraterrestrial from a different technology basis, things like what like ley lines, like, we laugh at them now, like, oh, energy in the earth, ha ha ha, but no, it's very real. And they use them to navigate. I don't laugh at ley lines at all. A lot of people do. I'm not saying you do, but a lot of people do. And there's a great deal of old wisdom that humans are starting to discover is not superstition.
So you don't think, I know we're kind of going off on a tangent here, just a little one, but you don't think that Robert Bigelow, when he owned that and then offered it up for sale because he couldn't drill for oil because it's all surrounded by oil, and when he couldn't do that or procure any mineral rights, you don't think he inflated the personality of that piece of property and to get a multi-million-dollar sale? I mean, that's just my theory.
It very well could be, but that's part of the reason why I needed to make contact with the Skinwalkers. So
let's go.
Then let's do it.
It's right. I mean, I'm to the north of it. You're to the south. We could meet right there in the middle. We really could.
We'll have to discuss that.
Don't forget me. I want to come.
Right. Hey, let's do it. Let's get a whole team there, man. Like Ghostbusters, you know?
They would kick our ass out. You know that. Maybe. But yeah, they
we'll just say we're there to deliver pizza.
They protect the secrets of the Skinwalker Ranch. So, but anyway, I think you both make really good points, and I like to hear that. So, if
you guys want to talk about ley lines? Because ley lines are like my friend. I love them.
Let's back up just a little bit, because I wanted you know, Serena's talking about alien craft, whatever, and the story I think about when she talks about that is when she was, I don't know how old you were, but you actually saw a large craft, which was, you lived in a valley somewhere, and it was large, huge. How big and how old were you? And describe that event really quick, because I want to give everybody a little background, let them catch up to what we talked about previously on the show.
Yeah, so the craft that I saw was back in 1987, 88, in the 80s. This was before the internet. This was before Google. This was before really a lot of movies that could give you any idea of what an alien craft would look like. So it was when I saw the alien craft itself, I honestly didn't think it was an alien craft. I didn't think it was a UFO. It came over the valley that I lived in, and I was standing outside on my deck after school. I was like 9 years old, and I was looking out over a very large area. So I have a mountain that my parents live on, but it overlooks another valley. So the valley kind of runs beneath our property. So the hill, I would have to walk up, was extremely high. And so it's a very, very high mountain that we lived on. And as I was looking out over the forest, a cylinder shape at first started peeking through. I could only see a part of it. And as it started to kind of maneuver towards the middle of the valley, I got the full, it took a little bit of time, but not, I really can't tell you how much time because the memory is very strange. So when I was looking at the UFO, I was staring at it in some kind of awe. It was silent, no sound. Based on the size of my valley, I mean, it had to have been about a mile wide. And it was very large. And it didn't make any sense for it to be sitting in the air the way that it was because it was so quiet. And what was interesting about it was a perfect saucer shape. It had a saucer dome on the top. And it had the words USA stenciled on the dome itself. And I mean, I don't know how close it was because I could see it was just really large, and I think that's why I could see details because it wasn't like very close, but
right.
The size of it was so big that you could make out some details on it, and it looked almost like square pieces of metal that it was made up out of.
Right.
And it just very much made me think of like a ship from the ocean would be made up of, like the metal that you would see in that. And the USA being stenciled on gave it a very military impression to me. And so that's what I saw. And I honestly don't remember it leaving. Okay. I remember going inside, and I remember me leaving the situation and leaving it there. So I think, is that a screen memory of me leaving it, or I don't know. That's something that I'll never know, or maybe I'll have to dig deeper, with a hypnotherapist to kind of discover if that's really what happened. But my guess is that there was some kind of mental tampering going on, just based on what I know now about ETs and how they operate.
Now, was this when they communicated with you, or is this just like the first incident?
No, this was just a visual sighting that I had as a child. Now, during this time, when I was 9 years old, 8, 7, I was being visited a lot at night. I was being paralyzed. I was being,
Kute.
I would say really traumatized mentally.
Yeah. Did you have the impression that these guys looked like bugs, specifically mantises?
Cassidy, when I was like really young and these things were happening to me, I would black out.
Gotcha.
Out of fear. I would see them coming. I would see the lights coming, and I was so terrified. I was so afraid that I would crawl. And I remember this very clearly, but I would literally, I couldn't blink, but I would create a dark space within my own mind, and I would crawl into that. And it sounds kind of bizarre, but the fear that I felt was so intense, and I was so afraid that that's what I would do.
What if I were to tell you that they were using their technology to create a toroidal field over your head that caused fear hormones to be released? So it wouldn't matter if you were logical or not. Your body's being flushed with fear hormones.
Yes, I can see, now that I kind of know a little bit more, like what you're saying, and how they do affect the body. It's really incredible how much hormones have to do with our perception and what we experience. There's so many layers of biology that human beings have. Our hormones, our electromagnetic field that we have, and a lot of that is not really expressed in today as a science that is a lot of it's like metaphysics in a way, and it's not really treated as like a real scientific thing. Like if you go to a doctor and you say, I'm flooded with fear, they don't talk about how to help get your electromagnetics or your chakras. They don't talk about those things. They don't talk about your hormones in a way that really gives you a sense of like knowledge, like how much those things are controlling our perception. But they certainly, aliens certainly do have that technology.
Yeah. Do you remember what it looked like inside the craft?
Now, I did not get abducted that day. I did not see inside that particular craft.
Probably a good thing.
But see, I honestly don't know. That maybe they did abduct me that day, and I just don't remember. But
exactly,
that's a problem that a lot of abductees have is the memory loss, the time loss, the confusing behavior. Not responding to seeing a UFO the way a person I think would respond today, but that might have been because it was the 80s.
That is like the younger viewers, it was a big difference back then, man. If you said UFO, they threw you in the clink, I'm 40 years old, so I'm 42.
And you know what?
I remember.
There wasn't a whole lot of information on UFOs in the 80s.
Truth. I think the most accurate information I found was actually from the Time Life series. So
why not? I mean, that's information.
I used
to
have an encyclopedia for an actual encyclopedia to tell me how to do stuff. And I have Google.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't study photonic and quantum entanglement because obviously it's hard. There's math involved. What's your interest there, and how deep have you gotten into that?
Well, I'm not a physicist or a mathematician, so I really shouldn't have any interest in photonic entanglement. But because of my experiences, I've had to learn a little bit about it. One of the interesting things that recently happened to me was I discovered a couple of connections, and maybe Cassidy would know a little bit about the Orion system, but I'm just starting to learn about the Orion Nebula, and that was a place that I had been connected to for quite a bit of time without really knowing that it was the Orion Nebula. And I'll just give you a bit of backstory. I would try to meditate when I was 18, 19, 20. Like I would go to like meditation centers, and then the second that I would meditate, it was like I was astrally traveling through space. It was like I was being sucked into a vacuum that was sending me through space, and it sent me straight to this glowing white nebula every time. And I started to think maybe that it was my home. Maybe that was like a safe space for me.
That's not an unreasonable question. I heard your giggling at yourself. That's not an unreasonable question. Okay?
Right, because if you don't know, then you just think my soul belongs there because it goes there.
Right.
And at the time, that's what I thought. And being naive, I thought that was a natural place for me to go. But there was an unease there that I felt, and I didn't quite know why I felt uneasy about it. But my friend, a good friend, he was listening to me talk about the aliens, and he was listening to me talk about what they did to me. And he said, that sounds like these grays that come from the Orion system. And so I started to look up Orion system. I found the nebula. I found it on NASA, and it was.
Wasn't that a great moment?
My place. There it was.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me into thinking about photonic entanglement. And I started to question, when I meditate, am I astrally traveling there, or is a piece of me there already? And so it kind of drove the question of, how did I get there? And why are pieces of me in the photonic entangled state that they're in the Orion Nebula? So that is like a very crazy question, but it is actually backed up by what science is doing right now, which is creating memory, vast amounts of memory through photonic entanglement. And what they're finding is that it really creates this whole structure, this whole connection, so that whatever's happening to me in my body here, they could essentially be doing things in a whole nother star system and affecting me and my genetics where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah. It can be scary.
It's scary but cool. Like, I mean, obviously I don't want anyone having that control over me. And so, at first I started doing math. I even started doing math, and I was like, okay, so if I am photonically entangled with the Orion system, then if I'm meditating, it should take a certain amount of time, scientifically, from here to the Orion Nebula. There's a mathematical equation there.
Sort of, but humans
unfortunately, our math does not support this technology yet.
Yeah, humans have to understand what they think of as space is not space. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you can't math it until you can factor in, gravitic fields and spatial fields. Then you can math it.
Exactly. So. And guess what? I am not an astrophysicist, so I kind of was like,
Yeah, I'm
You're
not
young.
either.
What time?
Yeah, and a mind like yours, you could do anything you want.
I wanted to know, I wanted to know, scientifically speaking, exactly how much time it would take for these connections to be made. And that's a very amorphous question because there's so much physics that we don't know and understand quite. But then you get into the metaphysics part and you're like, well, I can connect with this field somehow, me, biologically. I don't need to know the math of it, but I do know that for me, that's where my photons are entangled. So when I started looking at photonic entanglement, I found that it was actually a pretty big deal. They're using it to create these supercomputers, and and I can see why they would do that. But I think ultimately, what they're going to try to do with it is create a alternate reality.
I would agree, actually. And for the people who are fans of the singularity theory, I think that those two things have a lot to do with each other.
They do. Yeah, because my reality was interwoven with that particular field. And my biological systems could be interwoven with that. And I've struggled with that a little bit because I don't particularly enjoy the idea of having my body at the photonically entangled state that it's in out of my control. But that's...
What if I were to tell you that it would actually require roughly 3 galaxies worth of energy to break through your soul's integrity to do that? It's possible, but it's so not worth it.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, the integrity of people tend to think of souls as spirituality nonsense, but your soul is like an actual thing. It's like you can measure it with the right equipment. And a soul's integrity is way stronger than people think.
And let me ask you this: what about the separation of your conscious state and your physical state? I mean, obviously, you're just a gathering of light waves, but then there's the consciousness of that. So you have the separation of the two, yet you also have the interaction of the two, and so your discomfort of feeling those feelings and possibly how you're being used could be on a different level that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
I'm in therapy for all of this, so I totally agree with you. There is a very distinct layer. One of the things that happens when you're abducted is the paralysis. And what I think that the paralysis is your soul and your body being separated. And I think it has to be that way because your body doesn't necessarily go with them. And sometimes I do think that in many of the cases where I felt like I was being taken, I think that my body actually remained, and that there was more of an astral taking involved. And so it was very terrifying.
I imagine the astral taking would be worse.
I think that's where the crawling inside of the mind comes from. There was a piece of me that remained, and then there was a piece of me that went. And what I would love is when we talk about being taken and abducted, it's very hard to know how much of you is actually on the ship. So when I have the memory of being on the ship, when I'm on the ship with the aliens, I think there are times where they actually do need to physically have you there. How do they reassemble you? That's part of what I'm not quite 100% sure about, because I honestly believe if I was to be logical about it, then I would probably say that they may have clones of their abductees. They may have started, a body for me that could be harvested in other places. It's a disturbing thought to think that, there may be a version of me that is up there that they're using, but it's possible.
Right. I have a friend, Byron Lacey, who feels that he's able to keep them at bay. One of the ways he does it, he keeps a 45 under his pillow. And
that'll work.
Maybe just knowing that it's there could keep them at bay. However, I also feel there's guys like me who, aren't worth the time. And, they make their presence known in ways and I could be involved in these Mexican standoffs where they're there, I'm there, and we're just kind of frozen in time for a while, maybe, hours, minutes, whatever, and nothing ends up happening, or as far as I know. And so it makes me think about, what the purpose of all that is, because obviously there's a lesson there in futility, but also there's their persistence, and what does that come from? I mean, why is there such a persistence and this wanting of human beings? Are we that spectacular? We're not the ones that have been traveling, millennia or whatever through light years.
Y'all can just create reality.
Right.
Why would anybody want that?
We're just kind of in this existence. However, we do some remarkable things, but to me, it's, why us? Isn't there anything out there more interesting or more valuable as far as the perpetuation of that species, whatever it is?
Begging your pardon, but no. Humans have a very, very unique genome, and the ability to literally think reality into existence is extraordinarily valuable. Everybody wants a piece, but nobody wants to be born here properly to learn it. So it's a conundrum. They want to break the rules, but they want to have the benefits too. I can't claim to understand. We don't get them. They're very strange even to us.
So let me just throw this in here really quick. And we have a phone number. It's 731-213-1550. And if you call in, you can hang on the line. We would get to you. Last week I announced the phone number, and even though the show was at 7 o'clock, people started calling it at 4 o'clock, which doesn't really work. But nor does it work later. So we're live right now. It's 7:44 Mountain Standard Time, and that's 9:44 in the East. And 6:44 on the West Coast. So if you'd like to call in, we certainly would love to have you call in. I'm unable, Cass, to see any questions on YouTube, which most of my listeners don't hit YouTube. They usually hit it after the show on the recording on Podbean. So
right.
I don't know if you're able to look at that. And
yes, sir, I can.
Okay. And so anyway, the phone number again is 731-213-1550. And if you didn't get that, it's also there's a little ad on all of my Facebook profiles and pages. So you can check that out and give it a whirl. I did have a call, and the number looked really, really bizarre, and I won't even tell you why. But
what's that number again? I can put it on the screen.
It's thank you. It's 731-213-1550.
35550.
When unknown caller comes up or 000-000-0000, I'm not answering the phone.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So, although it'd be kind of interesting. I always liked Art Bell when he had like the demon line and the whatever line. That was always hilarious. But I miss that guy. Not that we're trying to emulate that, but it's lots of fun. But our guest tonight is Serena Radcliffe, and she's calling in from the East Coast, or actually she's live on video, which is awesome, and thanks to Cassidy Lightwing for that. Serena, what does we kind of talked about DNA a little bit. Do you have any insight in what our DNA actually means and what it is? I mean, what it is actually to us, we sort of know, but what is it to people or to organisms out there who obviously have taken a great interest in us and that?
So I'll just speak on my experience of what they showed to me. They seem interested in the law of attraction. So when I was speaking with Zen, one of the things that he showed to me was the law of attraction. And don't Google law of attraction, because it'll just tell you how to like bring things into your life. And maybe you need to do that. I don't know. But for them, it's a little bit different. The law of attraction is what we would consider falling in love and being attracted to something. And it's also a little bit like when you walk through a door and you stub your toe. We are on that scale where we are atomically, we're not really touching anything. There's a repulsion going on, and that's the electromagnetic frequency, whatever you want to call that, at that level. With atoms are not, acting the way that other things act on the outside. So like when I'm sitting here, you see me, but my atoms are moving freely. They're moving in and out. They're in a structure, but they are also not in a structure. And that's what's interesting about atoms. And with the aliens that I encountered, they actually reversed this. So like they were showing me that they exist in the law of repulsion, and that I exist in the law of attraction. So everything about me is attracting my reality.
Yeah.
And that means that I am experiencing gravity. I'm experiencing the material around me. And I can't float through a wall because I'm made of a solid state. But if you were to reverse that and you were to be a creature that is living in the law of repulsion, then you would have an opposite state of structure. So it would be like you can travel through that wall because you're not in a solid state all the time. It's different. I mean, I don't know what it is about humans, but I do know that there is a hormonal connection. Your hormones connect you to this state of attraction, this law of attraction that allows us to reproduce. And that is something that, for biologically speaking, they're interested in us for. On the spiritual aspect, I really can't tell you, because that's not a conversation that we had, but that's also probably because that's, I was asking questions that related a lot to my my abduction experiences, right, which have been, I would say, based on my ability to help them create hybrids.
Define hybrid in the UFO in the ufology community. The word hybrid has a couple of different connotations. So could you enlighten us, please?
I like that word you just came up with, by the way.
I'll add it to the dictionary.
That's good. You're gonna save that, please.
Well, did you guys see the show American Horror Story?
I'm going to say yes because I've watched all of it. But yeah.
Did you see the recent American Horror Story?
Last one I saw was the one with Stevie Nicks.
Oh, okay. Well, come on, guys. The most recent one they just did was literally the story of my life. The saddest thing is that I had to watch it play out on TV, which was awful. I don't know if we can get a screenshot of the alien baby that she holds in the show. But it was literally taken from my own experience of holding an alien child and looking at it.
It's
and
a good looking
seeing. Well, so the hybridization thing, that's really interesting. My personal experience with the hybridization is terrible. And Cassidy, you know that. Like, I'm a mom, so like I have a very maternal instinct. And maybe it's even been enhanced. But I just have this real love for my children that I do get to have in my life.
Right.
And I've had to go through a very intense sadness about the hybrids that I did help to create. And I wouldn't be able to tell you like exactly how they do it. And I really don't know what kind of hybrid they're trying to make. But a hybrid to me is some of their qualities, some of my qualities put together into something that they, it's all what they want. It's almost like how we do gene editing on Earth. We don't allow people to make perfect humans because we don't want to have human beings struggle to fight against the perfect humans, right? We don't want people to do that. So I think we have it pretty much outlawed. But they are creating their own perfect version of themselves, something that can, live and procreate and reproduce. And part of me was the hormonal part, the part that can reproduce. Part of me came from my genetic structure that is in the, probably I would say, newer genetics, because I think that their genetics are really, really old as well. And I think maybe decayed a little bit.
They have about 100 years to catch up on.
Huh?
They have about 100 years to catch up on.
Yeah, so I think that the hybrids are just kind of a little bit of us and a little bit of them. Into what I saw was a very pale face, very large black eyes, but almost looked like an Asian child to me.
Right. Would you, if this is too personal, you just go ahead and smack me with a newspaper. Would you be open to your hybrid child making contact with you?
Of course, yeah, and that's actually who I reached out to.
Cool.
When I reached out to, to speak with the aliens, when I had been abducted, I had never gotten an answer from them. They had never communicated directly with me. They never really gave me any answers. So when I reached out back in 2019, when I was pregnant with my son, who's 2 now, I reached out to the hybrid child, and I reached out to the baby that I had held on the ship. And I don't know if that's who connected with me, to be super honest, because they don't have that same, they don't have that, oh, hey, it's mom. Some of them may. I actually, I think I remember talking to you about how I was meditating, I was thinking about it, and I had like 200 or so souls that I had come in contact with as far as hybrids kind of flood through my system. And it was a very like eye-opening thing, because until then I had not considered how many hybrids were deformed and how many hybrid children were not perfect. And so here's the thing with American Horror Story that is really just crazy. They basically are going off of that entire storyline of, create, a woman like me, played by an actress, you know, experiencing being taken and then experiencing this forced kind of helping of these aliens to create these hybrid races. And in the story of American Horror Story, obviously there's a lot of, you know, stuff that goes on that I didn't have to go through, but
thank God for that.
Yeah. But it was still, when I watched it, and I actually, when she was holding the baby, I was very surprised at how exactly they had that hybrid child.
Right.
Because they picked an exact copy of what I saw, and that was their version of the perfect hybrid child. And so it's very fascinating to me. I think they are leaking this information out to the public as entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what they're doing is really sad because they're creating cognitive dissonance in the general public. So you're watching something that is horrific, you're watching something that is terrible, but you think of it as fantasy. And
right.
So you don't have the proper tools to handle that it's actually real. And so when someone tells you this is real, you have this like, oh no, and you believe that aliens are good and that they want to help us, and some of them are, and some ETs are wonderful, but the ones I experience, the Greys, who are using human beings for this interbreeding purposes, they're not very great.
Do they still pester you?
No.
Good.
No, I mean, honestly, I have not had any kind of experiences with them since 2019.
Okay.
Is that a good thing? I mean, are you happy about that? Or did you benefit from the interaction in some way?
I think that honestly, like the feeling that I have is that I don't need any more contact with the Greys ever for the rest of my life, and I'll be fine.
Who could blame
I'm very
you?
happy.
So is there a, you know, people talk about the spirit world and the danger that could be inherently, you know, devastating to you there. Is there a line that you definitely don't want to cross in this world, you know, in the alien world because, you know, of some danger that we don't know of? Obviously we don't, there's no written instructions there, and we really don't know how to play this game with them. So is there a line we don't cross? And that could be for either of you or both. Let's go to Serena first. She's thinking hard.
You know, honestly, like this is something that I struggle with, is I don't really feel like I have any kind of a voice as far as, you know, what the aliens want from us and where the line is drawn. I was kind of essentially a lab rat for them. But I think that there really is a point of no return that has already passed. And the discussion that should have been had in the public, it never happened. And so a lot of what's going on right now is behind closed doors. And I think we can all agree that when things go on behind closed doors, it can get pretty ugly. Yeah, because no one is there to philosophically debate whether or not human beings should be part of this hybridization process, or whether or not we've always been part of it. And maybe we need to talk about that. One of the things that like really bothers me, there is a line for me, and that line is what Dr. Greer is doing, where he is taking people into fields and asking them to telepathically connect with these ETs and bring down ships. And I feel that that is a very big line that he is crossing. I don't think that he is doing what he's doing in any kind of naive way. I think he knows that he is feeding these people to them. He's essentially just giving them on a platter and saying, find the psychic ones in this group and he's washing his hands of what happens to them afterwards.
I wonder if that's.
I mean,
why he
that
won't
that
talk
could
to
be
me.
part of it, but there's a lot of money that he's making on that, and whether these people are capable of that or reaching that level, who knows? But I mean, either way, whether it's happening or not, it's yeah.
Well, I think of
I'm
how
not
the
into
Grays
that.
would find people like me. How did they find me? Were they essential? Did they help create me? My mom talked about a story where she was pregnant and she was driving down the road and she was coming home from work and a light came out of the sky and chased her. And she pulled over because she was afraid and she tried to hide. And then she doesn't remember anything else for 8 hours. 8 hours is just gone for her. And when she came, to, she was trapped underneath her car and had to crawl out from underneath her car and drive home. So there is a question of, do they do this by generation? Do they have intergeneration? And so, like, I think that there is bloodlines that they follow, that they've enhanced, that they've helped create. But I do think that when Dr. Greer is bringing these people out there, he's giving them new blood. He's saying, scan these people, look for the people that are more capable. And that's another thing, is that the aliens are looking for certain types of people. They want a specific, not all aliens, but these Greys do want a specific type of person to interbreed with. And that person is empathetic. That person has latent telepathic abilities, who is extremely probably kind and generous in their life, and they maybe don't even know what their own abilities are. But when they're trying to psychically connect with these aliens, I'm telling you right now, they are being scanned, and these people are basically just lambs to slaughter.
Well, Mr. Greer, you've now caught my attention.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Yeah.
That's why I don't like Dr. Greer.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I got a chip on my shoulder on him for a completely different reason, but it lines up. Well,
but I mean, between the three of us, we have all the bases covered with Dr. Greer.
No.
Quote Dr. Greer.
Now, as far as your question about how they find you, I can actually answer that one, and that's a pretty universal technology. You're talking about toroidal spheres. There is a toroidal sphere lodged in your head, your heart, and your gut. Okay, the way those three toroidal spheres, also known as Merkaba for you in the spiritual community, the way they interact together creates a frequency. Basically, as long as someone knows your frequency, they can find you anywhere in the galaxy. And yeah, that can be scary.
That's why you up, literally.
Yes, yeah, and that's why we teach people how to defend against that stuff. So,
who's we, Cass?
Well, we started on the last show that I was on, you and me. And basically after Super Cop said, no, I don't want to believe you, I was like, you know what, fuck you. Fudge you. I'm going to do this myself. So, sorry, I said a wordy dirt.
There's no alien topic that Cass can't comment on. So I appreciate that. He blows my mind like on a regular basis.
He's blowing my mind.
Man, it's fantastic.
I love you guys too.
So I don't remember that question I asked to both of you, but the
line.
Where's the separation between conscience and physical? I mean, obviously there's a difference, but what is the separation and is there a difference and what is it?
There's a very big difference. Consciousness comes in from someplace else, outside of time and gravity and space, Uh-huh. So, like, for example, my people, we will not interfere with that signal under any circumstances. We will not do it, okay? Because to do so is to mess with free will, which is a major taboo for us. And then the other one that I personally won't cross is I won't draw blood. I'll utilize my people's technology to expose all your secrets and get you sent to jail like Epstein, but I'm not going to draw blood. Ever.
Why is that? What about self-preservation? I mean, there's no innate ability or requirement or programming that would cause you to do so?
Well, if you show me a human that could do permanent damage to me, then maybe we'll talk. But I heal too fast. You shoot me, cut me, it doesn't matter. My people heal real fast. Yes, that works. I cried for months when Bradley said those nasty things about me. I cry a lot, folks.
That's a whole
a lot.
Story. But.
Yeah. But so it's just too much violence. I've said this before. I made my first human kill quite by accident when I was 9 years old. I did not realize that your species isn't strong, and a group of bullies decided to. Okay, in my defense, they had me on the ground, face down in the snow, and they were stomping on the back of my head. So I hit one with a bike chain. Did not realize I would crush his skull. So no more violence at all, ever. If I have to die for it, so be it. The only difference is if you attack my loved ones, all bets are off. So I have had a very, very violent life. As you know, Cameron, I have to wear armor in public because of it, Humans don't take me seriously until they see what I can do, and then they freak out. And they'll either assume I'm Jesus or the devil. And if they assume I'm the devil, they will attack. We've been talking all of my family, including Shar. We've been drug out into the desert and left to die. We've been shot at. We've been burned. Luckily, Shannon's better with fire than they were. If I hit back, that'll prove everything that they all said. And I won't do it.
I have a question for our guest. And, I've thought about this a lot, and we have a definite changing, a quickening in the changing environment of our world. But, Serena, are we subconsciously changing the environment of our world for a new species to dwell upon this planet after we're gone?
I definitely think that if you take a philosophical stance and you look at, if you ask yourself questions, are we behaving in a way that is consistent with a species that wants to live? The answer is no.
Nah.
We are not behaving that way.
Is that incredible?
But it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't want to live. It's just that there is a very complex mental structure that, like Cassidy was talking about, we are receivers. Our brain is a receiver. There's so many things that people think and do that are really not of their own mind. And it comes from this place where the science is out there. The science tells us how our minds actually work. It's just that it's called metaphysics. And so we don't take it as real. But I do believe that nihilism is what we're seeing right now on our planet. And I don't think that human beings are essentially nihilistic. And so there is something that is creating a nihilism of our species, a nihilistic belief system that is essentially leading to our downfall and our inability to continue on as a species. But is it because there's another species there? There has to be, because when you look at what happens if we go, if we kill ourselves, if we die, if we destroy ourselves, something would take that place very easily. And maybe the structure is already set up for that. I do think that it does have to do with some weird stuff, but those are things that I just kind of theoretically talk about to myself. I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, who would benefit from a warm, wet environment? And that's kind of where you go with those types of philosophical thoughts, is what would benefit, what other species could enjoy living on a planet that's hotter.
So
maybe a reptilian species.
I knew you were going to go there.
That's what I was getting at, because I think you wrote something to me about that, and my memory is not as good as it was, but something about reptilians sort of inheriting the earth and they had some interaction with you. Right.
Over our dead bodies.
When you talk about, when you look at like the Bible and you kind of think about who was the bad guy in the Bible, it was a reptile. It was a snake. And there's a lot of different reasons for snakes being bad, but I think that ultimately there is some esoteric knowledge in who will inherit the earth. And I think it is a reptilian species based on where we're taking the planet. And it doesn't mean that like it has to go that way, but it does make sense to me because a reptile would enjoy a hot climate. A reptile would enjoy, a lot less people. And think about the way that the planet was in the dinosaur age. It didn't have tides. The water was pretty much in a solid state, not solid, but it was pretty much melted from the poles. There was no Arctic ice. And it was just a very different planet, and it could go that way again.
Again, over our dead bodies.
But in a way
we can't fight what we don't understand. And so if people, again, we're talking about cognitive dissonance. People are behaving very nihilistically towards their planet and their inheritance of this planet.
Right.
But I don't think
that's why I'm asking. I'm wondering if we're programmed to destroy ourselves in order to prepare for something different.
Well, wouldn't that make the best sense to control people?
Sure.
Yeah, it would. If you had billions of people on the planet, really, you'd want them to just kill themselves. You wouldn't want to have to fight them, and that's kind of what they're doing. They're making it very easy on themselves, and that's kind of the way an intelligent species would operate.
Yeah. I don't think we're really intelligent right now, and so.
Well, we could be. We have all the tools. It's just that there is a higher intelligence. I think that is keeping us down.
I would agree, and I think that people can see the evidence of that for themselves in the Schumann resonances. So
you've seen reptilians, though, right?
I have, yes. I think that they're a huge part of my life, but I've had such weird encounters. One of the things that actually I wanted to talk about that was kind of a cool encounter was I think I encountered like a reptilian, but I also encountered a gatekeeper. So like my experience with reptilians has always been very strange, and I'm laughing. I'm laughing because
it is strange for sure.
It's R-rated. It's an R-rated relationship with reptilians, and I don't know what that.
So it's okay. We've heard that.
Yeah. So my experience with them has been sexual in nature, and it's nothing that I'm going out and looking for. I'm not going to the bars looking for reptilians, but when they do encounter me, it seems like their immediate response is to trigger my sexuality. And I don't know how they do that, but it's very easy for them. And I don't actually just automatically roll over and say, yeah, do what you want. But there's a very strong powerfulness about that. And the ones that I've seen are very big. Like they're very tall. They're maybe 9 feet high. They have very kind of a pyramid shaped top of their head, and their shoulders are very large. And when I do kind of encounter them, my response is to kind of just ignore them because I'm scared. So if I see one, it's like a dimensional creature, so it's not there. It's almost like it's watching you, and it's kind of waiting for you to acknowledge it. And when you do acknowledge it, it does have this ability to create a response. So, but I do want to talk about this cool experience. Maybe Cassidy knows a little bit about this gatekeeper, but I did encounter a gatekeeper who, when I Googled what they look like, it came up as Thot, like THOT, and I don't know what.
Thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I don't know what he and reptilians have in common, but there is a connection between the reptilian race and the Egyptians.
Yes, ma'am. Very, very strong one. Thoth is a bird, okay, and reptilians, birds, very, very closely related. And quite frankly, not all the reptilians are bad. A lot of the UFO crowd are like, oh, reptilians. The Pleiadians are also reptilian. So it's like, just being afraid of something because of its genome is no different than being afraid of somebody because of their skin color. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So essentially, their lust for knowledge and Thoth's lust for knowledge work very well together.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if he's a gatekeeper or not, but it felt like I had met kind of a gatekeeper of something.
Yeah.
And that it seemed like that was what happened. It was a very strange encounter where I was just kind of like meditating and I experienced this entity that was holding a staff, and it had 3 tetrahedrons, and he shot this light out of his staff. Mm-hmm. And then the reptilian kind of like, so basically how this happened was I was kind of in this meditative state, mm-hmm. and I saw this being, and I asked a question because I had questioned about the coronavirus, and I felt like the coronavirus was a manufactured virus, but I also felt that it was stemming from maybe the reptilian race themselves giving us this virus. And so I kind of like was asking this question, you know, where does the coronavirus come from? And this being thought he shot this beam of light at the coronavirus itself, and it just dissipated. And then behind that was the reptilian, and the reptilian was kind of hulking and kind of waiting there behind it. And then it tried to pull its little like stuff with me, and it tried to get me to be sexual with it. And I was in this kind of state of trance-like power, and I was able to actually go back to Thoth, and he was there waiting for me. Mm-hmm. And he showed me 3 paths, and it was really cool because he essentially showed me the left-hand path, which was like this 2 universal powers colliding. Like it was like one universe, and they were just colliding in the center, creating this chaos energy. It was so powerful and so beautiful, and just incredibly, like for me, an empath, I was very drawn to that power.
Right. Almost
in a way of like I could become a world destroyer with it. You know, you could take that kind of power and you go destroy stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
And then he showed me the center path, which was this path of light, this path of divinity. I think it was the path that Jesus might have also followed, which is a path of giving everything of yourself to the kindness and the goodness and like just the complete purity.
Path of service.
The path of service. And he showed me that path. And then to the right, he showed me the path that I was on, which was a circular path. And I would be circling back around, creating my mistakes, living, dying, circling back around, learning more, circling back around. Right. Eventually, you can either funnel into that center path of being a divine human, mm-hmm. or you can choose the path of chaos, which I don't know where that leads. Maybe like maybe like I just envision like standing on top of a mountain and you're just like, I will destroy everything with this power. It's like a Thanos type power. It's just it's really real. I mean, it's so powerful. And I chose, the path I was on. I was like, I'm good. I will stay on I'll stay on my circle and I will continue around. And then he took this green seed and he put it right here in my forehead. And it just started to grow all these like beautiful roots all down into my brain. And I really liked it, but I really didn't know what that was. It felt like it was a beautiful green seed. And that was the end of that vision that I had of Thoth. But when I woke,
What color were the roots? Were they gold?
Gold and green.
Okay.
So it was really beautiful.
Yeah. If
still don't know what to make of that.
well, I think I can answer that one for you. Have you noticed that since you had that vision, you've been able to put things together easier? You're noticing things you didn't before. You know, like if you go back and watch an old movie, you're like, oh yeah, why didn't I see that connection? Yeah, he's growing your neurons, your glial cells.
That could be, it could be an astral connection between my neurons and there's another. I mean, there's a whole lot going on with human beings that is just really cool. There's a whole field, an energy field that I've touched with actual knowledge that goes way beyond and above what I know. And I wish I could touch it more often. There's times when the field is very accessible. Mm-hmm. And then there's times when it doesn't feel as accessible, but
Is that seasonal for you?
It's celestial.
Okay.
I've noticed that I'm very connected to the moon. And so I do very strange things when there's a full moon. I will take hot baths. I will meditate. I will go way out into these places. I'll have these visions. And then the rest of the month, I'm just like a normal person.
I envy you.
Right? I mean, it's definitely a celestial thing for me.
Gotcha.
I can feel the veil thinning, and I can see the frequencies aligning. It's something that I've always kind of been able to do, but as an adult, I kind of I wouldn't say look down on those types of things, but it was hard for me to connect with that part of myself as an adult. When I was a kid, it was easier because I didn't really have so much responsibility. But as I got older, I started to think I need to be responsible and I can't give in to this part of myself that is so out there. And so I have been unleashing that part of myself a little bit, and it's been kind of exciting.
Cool.
You'd mentioned Jesus and that you had seen three paths. Now, Cass and I had talked about this, and I talked about this to other people. I think there's a confusion or an interest, depending on how you look at this, with people who look at the traditional historical Christianity, combine it with UFOs, aliens, throw in a little bit of Sasquatch, throw in whatever else. So you have all these elements. And there are many people who tell me it's all related. There's people that tell me that people are confused and, they're struggling to make some sense out of the universe. Somewhere in between the two is the truth. So you mentioned Jesus, and you saw three very well-defined paths. So what is the truth?
So I don't believe in the fact that Christianity is supposed to be saving mankind. I believe in a more esoteric version of that there is definitely some knowledge that can be gained by reading the Bible. But when you talk about Jesus, there is a purity of his spirit. And I didn't just sense that Jesus had walked that path. I also sensed that Buddha had walked that path. And there is a choice that people make to walk that path and to give themselves up. You can do it. Anyone actually can do it. Yeah. It just takes a complete understanding of what that path means. And I think in the Bible, it talks a little bit about what that path meant for Jesus, because those are some of the things that come out in the Bible. But what Jesus did preach was what that path meant for him. And it means just a purity of soul, so much so that it just irradiates health. It can actually genetically change the structure of the beings that he came in contact with. And I think that the technology that the ETs uses a very similar type of technology. It's a harnessing of the power that exists naturally. And I think Jesus is an example of how you harness that power. But I think that his story was hijacked by a religion. So I don't know what kind of truth it gives you, but there is no such thing as truth. There is no such thing. There for everything that, for every true thing, there's also another person's version of what that feels like.
Right.
You can say, I love hot baths, and that is true. But for someone who cannot stand a hot bath, it's not true.
But I think it's a good practice to move toward what we think is the truth, because not only do we have this natural quest for knowledge, but the search for truth, leads us into directions we wouldn't normally take, and the result could be knowledge, it could be technology, it could be communion, it could be whatever. But I mean, we definitely are on that particular path.
Well, yes. I mean, there is like a moral truth, and then there is a scientific truth. And the path that the human race is on right now, I don't think is actually traveling on any of those truths, which is really sad, because, like you said, truth kind of like there is a path that is correct that works the best. Like when you talk about like how things work, the best way for anything to work is for it to work naturally. To just, how a conversation is where you like talk to someone and you have to like force the conversation, and you really just want it to have like a natural flow. And the natural flow of all things happens because of the way that our universe is set up. So I like to think of it as like an onion. You're peeling back the layers, and each layer, like you and me, we're peeling back these layers. We're trying to figure out where we fit, how we fit in this reality, how we fit in truth, how we should move forward, what's the right thing for us to do as humans. And the truth is the easiest thing for us to do, which is to just get along, to be friends, to not fight, to not have wars. It takes so much effort to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, we
exhausting.
spend trillions of dollars building things to fight, and getting along is free.
Right.
So just think about that for a second. Think about how much money we're spending, how much effort we're making for something that is unsustainable and does nobody any good.
Yeah.
Does your husband also experience some of the things that you do? I know that he has experienced it, and you share that a little bit, but do you think he's intuitive like you and is able to conduct himself in those ways and able to experience some of the same?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at all. No, not even a little.
Or does he not remember it, or
does he believe you?
He definitely respects the journey that I'm on, and he respects what I go through. But I think he has never mentioned a single thing to me about any kind of vision or extraterrestrial experience or experience with entities. We actually had an entity attack us. No, it attacked me. But it started off really great, and it started off as like a connection, like a, hey, how are you? And like kind of like calling my name and kind of like talking to me. And I don't usually give entities any time of day, but I was curious, and so I started talking with it. And it was it taught me some interesting things. It taught me about suffering, because this was a lower being, a lower vibrational being. And it was, and I think I was in a state, I was kind of depressed when this happened. So I was in a lower vibrational state. And it was talking to me about suffering. And it actually taught me some really interesting things about suffering, which is that suffering is the low-hanging fruit of the universe for these things. You know, entities that are on a low vibration. And I think that on our planet particularly, because we are so unaware, and self-awareness is lacking, of what we can really be like. So when we're sad, we're actually low-hanging fruit for a lot of dark entities. And he was kind of teaching me about like how he could transfer my pain and suffering and sadness into energy for me. And it actually did do that a little bit. I could think more clearly. I could get answers for things. I can tell you this right now, my dishwasher broke. And I don't know anything about dishwashers. And it was like, let me help you fix it. And I literally was just fixing the dishwasher, and it worked. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like, you do have the ability to make me smarter. Okay, great. Eventually, I didn't have the suffering that it wanted. It wanted me to feed it suffering, so I had to get rid of it. And so I started to do some things to kind of close it off and banish it.
Now, did you get your red lightsaber before or after?
Well, I had to banish it, so I didn't know what to do. I wish I should have called you. But I got some Palo Santo. I started cleansing everything. Cool. I started doing those like deep cleansings. And that didn't work. It was still there.
Oh.
So I really pushed hard, and I just really like took as much energy as I could, and I said, you know, banished, you're gone. Right. You're not allowed in my realm of existence. And it attacked my husband. So he was sleeping, and he's a very big guy. He's strong. He doesn't have a whole lot going on with nightmares, but he woke up screaming after I had done this like intense banishment ritual. And he woke up screaming, and he told me that this creepy thing had been following him along a riverbank, and it was eating its fingers, and then it was trying to get out of this cage, and then this door opened, and it ran through the door, and he was crying because he was so terrified of this thing. And I just knew it was this entity. It was this dark entity. But yeah, it did go. I mean, it had to go. Good. There was nothing else for it to do. I'm not a sufferer. I'm not a person who likes to suffer. I enjoy life too much. So
given what you just described, would you agree with me that what people call magic and ritual is just another form of science?
Completely.
Whoa.
100%. Magic, if you actually want to know about magic is just, a witch is going to create a grid, ding, 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 right, of tetrahedrons. And she's going to enmesh those strings of energy with a harmonic resonance, usually some chanting. And then that resonance is going to manifest itself in reality. Same thing is true if you look at a quantum processing computer that is trying to mimic the human brain and create memory and storage. And that is exactly what they do. They create a grid. Ding, 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 ding. Those grids are made out of crystals. Ooh, la, la, and those crystals are shot through with light and resonance, and they can control, the system by putting in controls, inputting it.
Right.
And witchcraft is exactly the same way. You're just creating grids of energy, and then you're enchanting that energy with your, sound. You're saying what you want. You're repeating it. You're saying, a spell is really just creating that manifestation, which is exactly what they're doing with science.
I would 100% agree.
In fact, I would even go even farther to say that if you were to look up the grids that you would need to create photonic entanglement, They are exactly the same as a pentagram.
Really? Huh. That makes sense, actually.
Because it's tetrahedrons.
Wait,
Tetrahedrons
pentagram or
are
pentacle?
very powerful.
Pentagram or pentacle? Right. And is there a difference?
I don't really know because I'm not a witch. So.
Okay, fair enough.
But you know, for me, I just saw a lot of the connection when I started researching science, and I started seeing like, oh, well, look at this. These are, you know, there's a science, but there's also, again, that biological connection that we don't need to know what those scientists know because we know it inherently. It's in our DNA.
Mm-hmm. And your subconscious.
Again, it's the onion.
Yeah.
You know, all the things that we need are right here next to us.
Indeed.
Right here. If we were trying to pull too far in that onion, then none of that stuff is even going to work for us. Everything we need is right next to us. What we need.
I literally agree. When I'm talking on the show on my show about how to, you know, engage these energies, I tell people, look, these are hyperspatial constructs. They're literally next to you in frequency. All you got to do is reach out and grab them, you know?
Yeah. And they have to be because that's the way the onion works. And if you're like struggling and you're trying to like accomplish something and you're thinking way too hard and you're trying to like create all of these like vast, crazy ideas, don't do it because it's too far apart from where you're at in that onion. So like where we're at is we are manifestators. We are, is that a word? Manifestators.
That's our second word of the night. And there'll be a vocab.
That's two, folks.
At the end. It's a good one. We'll keep that. That's ours.
But yeah, that's our superpower. Our superpower is manifestation.
Yes.
The fact is that they took that from us by creating these villains, which were, you know, witches and people who were doing it naturally. Again, these are people who were just doing it naturally. They were feeling the vibe of the frequency around them, and they were like, let me make this grid and let me put my manifestations into this grid. And these are the original manifestors, is the shamans and the witches. And you are going to see them doing it in science right now. They are going to be manifesting you into their virtual reality. And believe me, you don't want to go there because it's a firewall to the real thing. So like the stuff that they're going to create for us, that's going to create this virtual reality, this manifestation of it, it's a firewall. Everything you're going to learn on Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse or whoever puts it together at Google.
Right.
Google is the number one donor to the Photonic Entanglement chip makers in the United States and Canada.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they really do want to create this virtual world.
Okay.
And that virtual world is a complete firewall to the universal world where we really belong, I think.
Forgive me, I don't quite understand the word firewall. You're talking about it in computer context, right?
Right. So when they create this virtual world, which they will very, very soon, using photonic entanglement chips, and that's what I think is going to happen. They're going to create photonic entanglement in human beings to their virtual realities, the virtual world that they want to insert you into. Everything that you do in there is going to be sanctioned by who is running that construct. It's going to be a true matrix of the mind, and it will feel very consumerism. It'll be just another version of what they're trying to do in our reality now, which is make us buy things, make us think things, give us this false sense of identity. And in reality, the universe is actually already there.
Is it possible?
The metaverse is out there. So the firewall that they're going to create is going to give you the illusion that you're doing something advanced and cool that's never been done before. But in reality, it's going to be a very watered down, boring, consumeristic version of what people can really do on their own.
Is it possible this has already happened? And that's why it seems like we're living in clown world?
I mean, if it is that we are living in a matrix now. That matrix is biological.
Okay.
We created that out of maybe a manifestation of wanting to, you know, maybe the spirit, maybe the universal mind did create this as a matrix for itself.
Okay.
But, you know, again, if you're going into a matrix and going into another matrix and going into another matrix, it can only work if it is right next to you. Peeling back that onion, again, it's not going to be so far away from what we're doing. So the matrix that we're in now, if we create another version of it, isn't going to be that different from what we're living.
Have you ever heard of the false Merkaba theory?
No.
Okay. What you're describing there is very much like that. Basically, natural Merkabas are very, very, very handy. Okay, but creating a false one, there's no way to make them stable. They tend to blow up. So what you're describing is sounding a lot like the false Merkaba. Like basically, they're trying to create another false Merkaba to ensnare the mind, and that never works out well.
No, and it's not going to work out well. Not at all, because what will happen is we're already in a state of decay. The people, you know, the world is already in a state of decay. So again, it's just a distraction.
Gotcha.
Followed by another distraction. You know, the first distraction is we're gonna become a spacefaring race, and that's obviously not going to happen with these big stupid rockets.
Nope.
And it's definitely not going to happen to stupid Mars, because Mars is just a friggin' crap hole planet. Nobody wants to go there anyway. But let's give cognitive dissonance is alive and well when it comes to that type of mentality. You know, let's spend all of our money and try to go to this crappy planet when you have this beautiful planet right here,
right,
to live on. I mean, that's cognitive dissonance at its height, at its best, is where people are thinking that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the idea that it's going to work out is zero. The percentage that it's going to work out well is not there. And they know that. I think they know that. And I think it's just, once again, it's to catch us in their net and to be able to control us. It's not to give us a technology that's, you know.
Yeah, this is not a Promethean deal.
Right. I think that the flashiness of it, you know, virtual reality and all that stuff it's exciting to hear those terms and those words, because it could be used so cool. Yeah. You know, I mean, think about it. If we were a civilization that had virtual reality from where we are right now, and we were using it, and we could use it for such a much more interesting thing than what they're going to use it for. But if we could use it to open people's minds to what the universe really does and how it really works, then it would be really cool. But they're definitely not going to do that.
Well, that's why it's up to us now, isn't it? And when I say us, by the way, folks, I'm talking about everybody. Okay, like everybody, tell your story. Okay, there's so many of you out there that have seen aliens, and you don't want to say nothing because you might sound crazy. Who cares?
There's a lot out there who do, though. I mean, by the millions, and you'd be really, well, you wouldn't be surprised. Most people would be surprised with how many people can speak of what we're speaking of right now.
Yeah, I mean that's
and more all the time.
Indeed.
Cass, do you have any more questions for Serena?
Oh, millions.
We're approaching the second hour, so we're probably going to wrap it up in about 15 minutes. So, and I'm sorry about the phone situation. Obviously, I have to interact with the phone line, and it would be better if I had a call screener who could hit the one button in a particular time when it asks me to. And, of course, I can't hear that without putting the phone. Yeah. So,
okay.
So that's where we're at on that.
We'll figure it out.
There's some bugs.
But it is the right number, right?
It is the right number.
Yes. All right, cool.
Don't call me at 4 a.m.
No. Besides, I'm too busy playing Fortnite.
I do.
So, yeah, I could pick your brain all night. It's, like I said.
You guys want to play a round of Ask Me Anything?
So I want to know...
Ask me anything.
The interactions that you've had with aliens, how many of them had names? Tell us those names again. And I know there's Sen. Were there others that you could actually name?
No. So Zen was the only one that ever gave me a name. And it was like a very cool thing to hear an alien say his name. Zen is it spelled Z? Is it spelled S? I don't know.
It's much simpler than Cassidy.
Well, that's the Irish people's fault.
I went with Z because I like the word Zen better than Sen, but I could be wrong.
I don't think it matters, as long as you know who you're talking about. I don't think Zen cares, right?
Yeah, so Zen. Let's talk about Zen. Zen was a biologically non-sexual creature. Not male, not female.
Like me.
Huh?
No.
Like you?
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, the race of the Greys is kind of a weird race. They don't have females and males, and they don't reproduce. So, but they do have a hive mind, and that's kind of cool. The idea of a hive mind is a complicated one because on one hand, you share knowledge and information, but then on the other hand, think about that for 1 second. If we all shared a mind, we would be really grossed out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Frank Zappa has a song about that. He believes the ugliest part of your body is your mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to share a mind with my fellow humans right now. But if we think about it for a second, it does kind of beg the question: would we be cleansing ourselves as a society if we shared one mind? And would we be able to cleanse like some of the people's thoughts and create more of a harmonious thought process?
This might sound racist, and if it does, I'm sorry, but because you guys are primates, I think it would.
Yeah.
Primates have a particular quirk of thought pattern. And, quite frankly, I think it would create a harmony. There'd be chaos at first, but,
Normally when somebody talks about racism, they don't say it like you did. Most of the time they say, I'm not a racist, but then the next thing that usually comes out of their mind is invariably racist. But
oh, no, I do.
This may sound racist. It is, but excuse me one moment. But so here's a good question.
I think it's a good thing, though.
I think it is. Here's a question that I have. It may not be a good question, but so you interact with these aliens in different ways, and whether they be Greys or Reptilians, whatever. What about, in your opinion, and everybody has an opinion on this that believes, are there aliens that walk among us that, maybe we couldn't identify them by any other way other than them being human, but are they out there among us, and do we interact with them on a daily basis? And don't roll your eyes. But,
I did not roll my eyes.
Yeah, you did. One of them. Your left eye.
They walk among us, and I think if you look at any human being on this planet, none of us are really terrestrial, because the truth is that the real terrestrials, the real indigenous species of this planet, probably stopped evolving at monkey. And so the human part, the bipedal species, it might have evolved slowly from that, but it was very much manipulated. And the human race itself is a very manipulated race. I mean, people talk about black and white and Asian, but in reality, those aren't really differences. A facial structure difference isn't really a difference. So what really is defined, in my view, as a difference is something that can't interbreed with itself. Like, something that you're talking about, like something that's so different that you wouldn't be able to breed them together. And with the human race, like you look at where we're at as a species, and we really just need to come together and realize that we're all very much just one race now, and that is and extraterrestrial genes are a part of that. So it's almost like you're separating all these people from where they're from, but that's really bizarre to me because we're all on one planet.
Yeah. Well, if modern geneticists are to be believed, which I believe so, then the antenna chromosome that allows psychic entities rather to come here in quote unquote human form has been around since at least the days of Akhenaten. So, I mean, that's why I tell people it's really has more to do with old Native American stories than UFOs. Because look at every single native culture on the planet. Every single one points to the same exact star system and said, we're from there. Then you look at human feet. Your human feet are basically designed for about 2 points less gravity than Earth. And also, like, your natural sleep cycles are on a 36-hour scale. So, I mean, like, add all this up together, and humans ain't from here.
No, and add in how hard it is for people to consume the food and drink the water on this planet. People talk about being allergic to so many things, food allergies, all of these things, when you really think about it, add up to human beings may not be as terrestrial as we think that they are. And there's actually a food source that I believe is actually more in line with the biological function that we have, and that is light. I think that light is actually a very viable food source for us in the sense of optically. Right. Because when you think about like the human soul and like what it's feeding off of, obviously it's feeding off of a lot of different things, but what it could really be powered from more than food is light. And so I actually believe in sun gazing. I actually think that it gives people a great amount of power. I think we don't utilize it at all because it's a totally metaphysical, weird, woo-woo thing to do. But that's just because we're not really talking about what we should be talking about, which is where human beings could be from and what they could be eating. And I think some of the Egyptian tombs, when you look at how much they worship the sun. Yeah. The sun, it wasn't just the sun, it was the rays. Yeah. It was the rays. And so what were they gaining from that? And what were they learning from the sun? And that's something that people need to think about because we're not learning from the sun anymore. And that means that we're not eating the sun anymore. And we should be.
Have you ever heard of one of the rituals to utilize the sun to access the Akashic record?
I've not heard, but I have done that myself.
Okay, then we are on the same page already.
Yeah, it's just something that I do naturally. It's something that happens for me naturally.
Cass explain or she explain?
No, go ahead, Cass.
You should definitely explain. Or Cassidy.
Well, it gets into a little bit of astrophysics, and one of the things that your scientists haven't quite figured out yet is that the center of every star is a singularity. Now, that's essentially hyperspace pouring into this world and from all directions from the singularity. Now, the advantage to that is that also includes a lot of next level information. And the ancients, like the Vedics, used to access that by placing their hand between their face and the sun, and they would look through their own flesh. Do you see what I mean? Now, if you've ever stuck a light,
I've done that.
oh yeah, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. The filter, I can't explain this one scientifically, folks, but the filter gets you looking into your own mind. You see what I mean? And then you from there, once you turn the eye inward, there's nothing that's inaccessible. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the sun. and you see this powerhouse. And then you think, there's not just one of these. There is trillions of these beautiful powerhouses that are, and people, I don't know if people really understand like the intelligence of photons, but the intelligence that they carry, and that they carry that intelligence, you know, in the same way that water carries intelligence that people don't really understand about water. And when you think about how many stars are connected in the galaxy right now, in the universe, and you are a advanced race that understands how to access this pure energy that is being blasted all through the universe, that's when you start to unlock, I think, that next level is when you start to realize what stars really are, which is these very large connectors of our, I think, conscious mind. Yeah. Maybe unlocking all of the things that are a part of our maybe dynasty of who we are as people.
I like the way you put it. I mean, we're made out of the same material, so I mean.
Mm-hmm. You know, the Dalai Lama said, you know, when aliens come, maybe 4 eyes, maybe 2 noses, but same. You know, we all want what's best for our kids. We all want a good life. We all want a square deal. These are universal concepts, you know. So we are all one, and that's
we're all one. And let's think about that for a minute. And as we wrap up, I want to give you both like a minute to summarize and to leave us with a closing thought. And we'll let Serena go last. So Cassidy, please.
Well, folks, just remember, hope is coming. You know, we're here. And I don't just mean like we as in aliens. I mean, you, conscious minds, you're waking up. It is time. You know, it is time to take back your fate and make of it what you will.
Serena.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me as your guest. It's always so wonderful to talk with you guys. But what I want to kind of leave people with as far as being an abductee is that you don't have to be in a position of fear, and you don't have to be in a position of powerlessness. Even if you feel that you can't talk to anyone, and even if you feel like no one can understand, just know that just by being an abductee and just by having that contact with aliens, it does give you power, because now you can take that knowledge, take that feeling, take that information, and really connect with the universe. There's no firewall for you or anyone else, really. But to just go out there with an open heart and to just not feel alone, is what I would hope for anyone that's been in my position and anyone that is looking to make contact. I would hope that you have a good experience. But again, you know, that's every experience is different, but you're not alone. And people like Cassidy, people like Cameron can attest to the goodness in human beings, that we are all kind of trying to figure out this world together.
Yeah. And we are. But we need to figure it out. We're living on borrowed time. And so, yeah, that's why as we come together and develop somehow one mind, even though we might not like what we see in each other's minds, I think that it gives us the ability to be more discerning and able to judge less rather than judge more. And I think that's super important. Yeah. It's also super important that you contact us and network with us. We're going to try to do this every Wednesday, and that's the plan right now. And obviously it's changed in the past, but I think one of the beauties of technology is our ability now to bring us together with video. Obviously, we have the ability now to, it's nice to see people face to face and to develop that bond that sort of keeps people coming back. So I want to thank both of you very, very much because it's been a lot of fun. It's always fun for me. Cass, thank you for helping throw this together, and obviously thank you for your questions. And Serena, I know we've been trying to get together now for a few weeks, and we'll do this again. Thank you very much, and keep in touch because the things that you probably don't realize, and I save everything that people text me and write to me. So this started over a year ago, and so I have quite a bit. I think I have about 6 pages of stuff that you've given me, and so as I was reading back,
I never forget about you, Cam.
Well, I was reading all this stuff, and then the stuff that we've messaged, just these little bits and pieces that I've put together over the last few nights. It's super, super neat, super interesting. I like the way you think, and you surprise me all the time. You surprise me all the time. That's the best part of it. So I want to say good night. It's been 2 hours, and it's been a really quick 2 hours. Again, we'll do this next Wednesday. We're talking Mountain Standard Time. That's my time. That's Cass's time, 7 p.m. And probably take Christmas week off, of course. But we'll be back. Not sure who we're going to be back with next week, but it'll be exciting. Check out the website at www.myalienlifepodcast.com. It has all the latest episodes. It has my Hall of Fame of My Alien Life podcast, and those are people that were on that really meant something and were fairly amazing, and I really like that part, and I look at that all the time for some reason, and I'm astounded by the people that I got to talk to over the years, and some were great, some were not so great, but the fact that they're on that wall of fame there is pretty cool, and doesn't necessarily mean I thought it was a great show, but there's something about it that stuck in my mind that I never forgot. So we do have a phone number, and that is 731-213-3550. We'll figure that out. I know. So I had people that I said, I need you to call in. And they were like scared to death. I couldn't do it. I was so scared. And I was like, one of them was my brother. And I was like,
oh,
my brother has a story to tell, of course, because we grew up in the same household. But that'll be another day and another story. So, again, thank you very much. And I want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you guys. This is my 2 guests tonight. And to all my people out there who listen every week, keep listening and keep watching. I'm Cameron Logan. Also find me on Facebook and on Instagram. So thank you very much. And we'll go to our beginning screen, and good night.